Hello, I'm Jasmin. Today's video is about reducing landfill waste at Christmas time to instead feed to worms in a worm farm or a compost bin. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country in our council areas and right across Australia. I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that traditional custodians always will and always have been an integral part of our area. So today I'm joining you with my friend Tonyi the worm. Tonyi the worm is an electronic worm, and we're going to feed some things that might generally go in the waste or the recycling bin. We put it out on Christmas week and be quite a full bin. So instead, let's think about whether we can feed it to worms in a worm farm or a compost bin, who will then convert that waste back into beautiful worm castings or compost that we can feed our gardens and support biodiversity right in our backyard. So, Tonyi's going to give us a beep if these waste items are okay to feed to worms. So let's start off on Christmas morning with a bit of fruit salad. So, might have a bit of rind or some peelings from, the preparation for Christmas roast lunch. Are they okay to feed to worms in a worm farm? So, Tonyi, can we feed worms fruit scraps or veggie scraps? That's a yes. So we're going to chop these little scraps up nice and fine and make sure that, there's going to be a lot of variety that goes in our worm farm. So I've got some carrot peelings, some fruit scraps going in there. It is present opening time, woohoo! So we're going to have some paper being ripped and maybe some cartons and, boxes being ripped. There's going to be all sorts of different materials that we're going to have to think about. Is that okay to recycle, or can we give it to worms in a worm farm? So firstly, we're going to check ripped paper. Is that okay for worms in a worm farm, Tonyi? Well, that's a yes. There's a bit of a variety though on Christmas Day. So if you have a lot of shiny or glossy paper, that's better to go in the recycling bin, unless you know that it's made from vegetable dyes. Because otherwise those dyes are going to end up in your soil eventually. So that's why I'm probably suggesting scrunch it up and keep a box aside and just collect that shiny glossy paper. Anything with glitter should be going in the general waste. Any of the packaging that has this beautiful natural tone, that can be shredded up into smaller pieces, and we're going to add that straight into our worm tub over here. Things like egg cartons as well, pizza boxes, they've got the little zigzag corrugation in the middle. That's perfect, and that's the carbon component of your worm farm ingredients. Perfect to balance out those scraps that we've already popped in. Beautiful. So let's make, or maybe we did it the day before, make a pavlova. Lots of eggs in a pavlova, so you're going to have quite a few eggshells left over. Do you think they'll be okay to feed into your worm farm? Ask Tonyi. That's a yes from Tonyi. So eggshells we can crunch up into small pieces again. So we're going to crunch that over here. Worms don't actually have teeth, so what you're doing by creating these smaller pieces is giving them something where the bacteria is going to be growing on the surface area, and then that's what the worms are going to digest. And with the eggshells, that helps them to break down the food in the little gullet area, and they can pass through that waste then through their body like paste. So it helps them there. Beautiful. So lots of eggshells going in the worm farm. With our pavlova, you might have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. So tea bags, coffee grounds. Do you think they're okay to feed to worms in a worm farm? Let's ask Tonyi. That's a yes as well. So with tea bags, some companies use synthetic fibres for the sheath of the tea bag. So you might want to jump online and just check out whether the tea bag company that you're purchasing from is okay for composting, because again, you don't want that to end up in your soil. Coffee grounds can go straight into the garden, or you can feed them into your worm farm or compost bin, no worries at all. Awesome. So depending on your diet, you might have a roast lunch or some prawns or something else yummy for lunch. So fish is still alive. Do you think those are okay to feed into a worm farm? We're going to check with Tony. That's no response, that means no. So just because a worm farm's quite a small area, we're going to feed them all the things that they can start eating straight away or relatively straight away. When it comes to meat and bones and things along this nature, that's going to attract rats and mice, or potentially will. So I'm going to suggest keep that out of your worm farm. And if you have something called a bokashi bin, however, you might have had some citrus from your fruit salad as well. So meat, citrus, onions, garlic, bread. These are things that are not really suggested to put into your worm farm. So if you have a bokashi bin, you can save those items and feed them into your bokashi bin as well. So I think we've gone through a few different items that are going to help your bin be a little bit lighter this Christmas. So why don't you ask Santa for your own worm farm or a box of worms. If you've been good, you might be lucky. And have a very Merry Christmas and feed worms and not the bin. See you later.